classroom where anyone can focus on learning? 20 countries later, I've learned that the Mahiga school is more the norm than the exception. In Ethiopia, I saw a school made of thorns. Some protection from animals, perhaps, but not from shivering cold mornings or blazing hot afternoons. Across Africa, classrooms built during the economic development of the 1960s are now decomposing into the ground. When I did visit new classrooms, I found a tremendous need for supplies. The footballs I carried with me were welcome, but I soon learned that what they really needed were dictionaries and chalk and pencils longer than a stub. With no chairs in their new school, I found high school kids trying to concentrate as they sat on stones. But what I also found at every school was excitement about the opportunity to get an education. In villages where the first school ever had recently been built, I found 21-year-olds finally able to attend the first grade, proudly learning to read next to 6-year-olds. I found kids who walked 6 hours a day to go to high school. I met young kids who were reading and writing with careful skill in their native language and in English. As we build new schools, we have to build teacher colleges to staff them, creating jobs for millions, the most powerful force in the world, an army of teachers. So which would you choose, this or this? The most important thing I've learned is easy to remember. Solving the world's education shortcomings is the greatest bargain on earth. In many countries, you can build a classroom for a few $1,000s, entire schools for $50,000. While I was at the Clinton Global Initiative in New York, Queen Rania of Jordan made it all clear.
It takes $11 billion a year to educate every child. $11 billion is about 10% of NATO's military budget for last year. And by the way, it's about what Europe pays for ice cream every year. So if you think about it, if we spend $11 billion less on defense and military expenses and more on education, imagine the kind of peace, security, and not to mention prosperity that you can buy.
Even in the most remote settings or in the poorest locations, there are still education solutions that work. Back in Delhi, passed from a crowded slum through the gates of Kata, an uncommon school for the common good. Breaking the caste system that once divided India, Kata unites the disenfranchised with the privileged, using the power of music, arts, and understanding to produce students with a great future. 3 years of preschool, parental involvement, no more than 25 students per teacher, learning that is driven by curiosity and critical thinking. Kata is a model for schools everywhere, preparing students for college or for employment. Kata improves upon traditional schooling, but because there will always be communities with no schools at all, I went in search of the hole in the wall.
I've always said that it's not a question of what the internet will do to India, it's a question of what India will do to the internet. Children love a challenge. Learning how to operate the computer and learning how to use the internet is something that children can do anywhere. If you just put a computer in public, in an open space, then children in the age group of 6 to 12 will learn how to use it on their own, irrespective of what language they speak in, how much schooling they've done, and almost anything that you can measure. The first hole-in-the-wall computer was in New Delhi in 1999, and it was set up in a slum area. within about 3 months, they learn almost everything there is, including downloading MP3s and graphic equalizers and videos. I asked this child, what is this character? And he didn't know that it was called Mickey Mouse because he couldn't read. He said it's a very nice game. It's a rat game. To him, Mickey Mouse was a friendly rat. India has always prized knowledge over many material things. All our entire philosophy is based on the fact that material things have lower value than knowledge.
What kind of job do you want to do?
So, computer engineer.
An engineer?
Computer engineer. Computer engineer.
All three of you, huh?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
We're moving from a world of have and have not to a world of know and know not. And that's going to be a very big difference in the way in which we deal with each other. Equalizing forces will have to change, hopefully from fighting to friendship.
It was monsoon season when I arrived in Bangladesh, a country that's threatened by climate change and by extreme poverty that can stop you in your tracks. I thought this was the saddest woman I'd ever seen. Bangladesh is also a nation where the lives of millions have been improved through work led by the first economist to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, Muhammad Yunus.
There's no reason why anybody should be poor. All people, even the poorest of the poor, has enormous potential, enormous creativity in each of them. But that creativity is locked up. You need a key to open that up. The microcredit, the small loans we give, it kind of opens that box. And then the person pulls herself out of poverty very systematically. Microcredit basically is a small loan going to the poorest people, particularly poorest women, for income-generating activity. They use the loan and earn some money and pay back in weekly installments. There is no collateral. There is no guarantee of any kind. And their repayment rate has been 99%.
There's a lot more to what you do than just loan people money and they pay it back. The borrowers also agree to important changes in their lives, right?
Yeah, like we grow vegetable all year round and eat plenty of vegetable. This came because of the widespread night blindness in the country among the children. Children will not see after dark.
And this is a vitamin deficiency.
This is vitamin A deficiency. And then we shall send our children to school and make sure they stay in school. And as a result, 100% of the children are in school. Even today, with 7.5 million families with us, our children are in school. And many of them are in high school, now colleges, universities. Today, Grameen Bank gives over 30,000 scholarships each year.
I already had a chance to go to some of the villages and meet some borrowers. What percentages are the women?
97% are women. So basically it's all women, and they own the bank. We have over 2,400 branches all over the country, each one financially independent. Everything they do is done through a 5-woman group. This is more for building courage in them so that they feel that she is not alone, she has 4 other friends to make this journey that she's embarking on.
What are some of the traditional businesses or crafts that the women invest in?
They will start with raising poultry, may do the embroidery of the clothes, buy a cow. This is a very popular one because you can see the difference right away. You take a loan, buy the cow, and sell the milk, pay back the bank. Within a year, you settle all your loans, and you're now owner of a cow and a calf. In a monsoon country, if you don't have a solid roof over your head, it's nothing but mud inside. So we thought this is a good time to introduce housing loans. It's a small house, 1-room house.
What's the cost of a house?
Cost is a typical cost is $300. Each one has a character of our own. And you can see that a dignified person is living inside this house. So the dream of their life comes true and they become the architect of their own home as they become the architect of their own life.
So Bangladesh is one of the countries that's going to be most affected by climate change. Millions of people are going to be displaced by rising sea levels.
For us, it's a life and death issue. 20% of Bangladesh is less than 1 meter high than the sea level. We need a UN resolution to follow goals to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 90% by 2050. At the same time, we have to look at our lifestyle. Every child, every person, every citizen on this planet must have a pledge that my lifestyle, for my enjoyment, should not be something which will hurt somebody else's life.
I think young people are hungry to be a part of heading the world in the right direction.
Absolutely. This is our world. We have one life to live. We must know where we are going, and we'll make sure we lead the world there where we want to go. We must define our destination. I'm the architect. You are the architect. And if you decide what you want to be, and I decide where we want to be, we'll be there.
When I started this road movie, I didn't have any idea of how far I'd be going, how long it would take me to get there, or how many different kinds of rides I would have to hitch to find the kind of shelter I was searching for. There are many types of shelter: people shelter, animal shelter, tax shelter offshore, tax shelter onshore. Hey, a lot of people could live in a Hummer. There are far too many homeless people in the world, but shelter is more than a place to sleep.
The idea about the challenge is to give architects around the world the opportunity to respond to great need. We focus on community structures that many villages or towns don't have the capacity to build.
Cameron Sinclair and I hitched a lot of rides when he invited me to come along to scout 3 communities on 3 different continents that were part of a global design competition called The Challenge.
Here we are in Nepal, probably about as remote as you can get, surrounded by the Himalayan foothills. And in about 2 weeks, this community will have medical care, which will be remarkable given the mortality rate that this community is affected by, but also by the AIDS pandemic, which is coming into this community. The idea is to build a telemedicine center. It's essentially a small clinic that accesses not just hospitals and academic institutions in Nepal and in India, but also around the world.
Sharing a freezing hut in the Himalayas and a can of Pocari Sweat was a good bonding experience for Cameron and me and technology guru Dan Shine. The next stop in our journey was one continent over, in Kenya.
This is one of the biggest slums in Nairobi. It's 250,000 people living in poverty. Today, 1 in 7 people live in a slum in the world. In 15 years, it's going to be 1 in 3. That's an astonishing figure when you start to think about what it's going to take to get people out of poverty. We believe that technology is a distinct part of that.
An African slum is a mind-blowing thing to experience. Siderec, the slum's information and development resource centers, are already operating in one gigantic slum. How many people use the center?
The center is used by an average of 200 people a day.
200 a day, wow. They're also planning a second facility in a new fast-growing slum, taking an empty lot and turning it into a place that people can come for education and information, safety, healthcare, and skills.
Siderec is committed to the fact that these kids are a vast untapped resource, and that the ability of kids to be able to gain skills, gain access, gain information is absolutely key to their future.
In Ecuador, the challenge was to assist local communities who want to preserve the rainforest that shelters them and still make a decent living for their families.
Most people think about charity as a handout, and actually people don't need help. What they need is just the opportunities that allow them to help themselves. And here is a perfect example. Kalari